Actually, it was in the 50s today.
Oh, that's warmer than it is here in Seattle. It was like in the low 40s here.
Yeah, it was in the 50s. We had the sun out. It was nice. Tomorrow will be nice. It's supposed to rain this weekend. So our big thing right now is we like to do fires in the backyard.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love the smell of that. But the problem is you smell like wood.
Good point. Good point. Did you have a Thanksgiving meal like with a group or anything? Because like we ate outside because of COVID and stuff. I was just curious if that's something maybe that you did too.
Yeah, we had our niece and nephew over, and what they did was we ate at separate parts of the house, and then after dinner we went outside and did a fire
There you go.
and hung out, and then they were going somewhere else. They were going back home, so
Okay.
it was good for me.
Okay. So we ate
But
our whole meal outside, like you
oh,
said.
really?
Yeah. Um, we had a long table, and then Tracy's parents came over
Hmm.
and had a fire on one end, and then heaters. It was cold, but you made it work.
No, it's one way to seeing everybody, as long as they're outside.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
Mark, I thank you for doing this again. I really appreciate you, dude. I'm serious.
John, this is great. I appreciate you even asking me to do this, man. This is nice to catch up like this.
Yeah. So we'll have a good time. We'll have a
Yeah.
good time doing this.
Yes, sir.
So, especially this is episode 17, and it's going, it's progressing.
That's awesome.
Every week it's progressing. So
Yeah.
we're enjoying it. I'm having a good time. So
That's
especially
great.
the things that I find out about different people, and it's just because I have to do research on everybody,
Yeah.
and it's a blast. To me, it's a
Yeah.
blast.
So
So
I know you've had a lot of Steelers on, John, but have you had any other of your teammates like from the Chargers or like any other guys from the NFL or anything?
not yet. Right now, I had Barry Larkin on
Yeah,
from the
baseball player.
Reds.
Yeah.
Yeah, because me and Barry grew up together.
What a small world. Holy smoke.
So had him on. Of course, I had Jerome on, I've had Damani on, I've had Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, um, Coach Ron Blackledge, Coach Stevenson. I had
Camp
him on.
Stevenson. Yes.
Yeah, I had Ken on, and just it was a blast. I mean, talking to those guys, I had no idea where all the teams that Kent coached for.
Oh man.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he coached for the Seahawks for a number of years before he came out to Pittsburgh.
yeah, he did. But he also coached in the USFL.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And it was up in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. So that was a treat. And he coached at a bunch of little small schools.
Okay. Okay. Gosh.
So that,
Yeah.
that was a blast.
He retired somewhere in the Midwest, if I recall.
Yeah, he's in Iowa right now.
Iowa.
He went
Okay.
back to Iowa. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Kent's a country guy, and he loves Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't
Yeah.
blame him. I'd rather go to a small city too.
It's not such a bad thing, I'll tell you.
No, not with all this stuff going on.
Yeah. Good point.
It's a great, great
Good
place to
point.
be.
Good point, John. I hear you, man. I hear you on
Great
that one.
place to be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So thanks again, and okay. Hey, this is episode 17 of the Offline Podcast. I'm your host, John Jackson. Hey, show us some love by hitting that like button, but we want you to subscribe to our podcast and join our team. Make sure you hit that alert bell. Hey, we welcome comments and questions. So go to offlinepodcast.com. Today on the 17th, not the 17th, the 17th podcast, we've got a very special guest, and this guest attended the University of Washington. He was the 27th pick in the 1995 NFL draft for the Pittsburg Steelers, and he played tight end. He played 9 years with the Steelers, 5 years with the Texans, and those numbers add up to 14 years. And he was a really good blocking tight end. He caught a few passes, and we'll talk about that. But after football, I did some little research on him. He was an NFL Players Association executive, and now he's scouting for the Pittsburg Steelers, and he's in his 10th year. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Mark Bruner. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, John, for having me on. I'm really appreciative of this and excited that we get to catch up. And it's nice to reminisce about the teams that we played on and the great game of football. Really is nice.
Exactly. Hey, Mark, are you losing a little hair up there or what? Is that hair going a little bit?
I blame all the football helmets that I wore is what's causing me to get a little thin up there. And then also my wife and I, we have 5 wonderful children. So all the stress my kids bring me are the reason why I'm getting a little thin up there. But we're making it work.
You got a whole basketball team now, right?
Yes, we do. It's wonderful. Our oldest daughter is 22, and our youngest son is 9 years old. And it's a blessing to have just 5 beautiful, healthy children, and they bring a lot of great joy to our lives. And it's exciting. It really is, John.
No, that's great, Mark. So you get drafted in 1995 by the Steelers, and you're a first-round pick. Now, what were your expectations coming into Pittsburgh? Because they had some pretty good tight ends when you got there, Jonathan Hayes and Eric Green. So, what were your expectations, especially being a first rounder?
Well, my first expectation was it was going to be a tough physical football team that I was going to be entering into. The Steelers were known basically for the whole decade of the 70s as the steel curtain defense. And then coming in and being on the other side of the ball and being involved and having the great opportunity to work with a guy like Jonathan Hayes. And, Coach Cowher was our head coach, and Neil O'Donnell was our quarterback, and just a number of great players that I had the fortune of playing with and being able to be a teammate with. It was so exciting. And I remember walking in that locker room for the first time, and I was like, this is an amazing opportunity, and there's some amazing football players in here, and I got to figure out a way to do my part to help us win some games. That was my goal coming in.
So you weren't like one of those guys who played video games, and all of a sudden now you're actually seeing the guys who were on those games?
No, the video games that we had growing up weren't as advanced as they are right now. And I do remember hearing about the great players that were on the team. So seeing, a guy like Jamani Dawson or Neil O'Donnell or Yancey Thigpen, Greg Lloyd, Rod Woodson, Carnell Lake. Carnell was a UCLA grad. So growing up on the West Coast, I was exposed to the Pac-10 at the time. So I knew of some of those players. And,
right.
and now you're in the same locker room with them, and you're putting on the same helmet as them. And that was quite an honor, John. That was an honor. And I was in awe for a little bit when I first got there. But then you get a chance to know those guys, and really they were endearing to myself and to the other rookie class that we had that year. As far as, hey, welcome aboard. This train's going hard, and we hope you can be a part of it. And make sure you do as we do and do as we say, because we're going to figure out a way to win a championship.
Right. So what was the biggest thing that Jonathan Hayes taught you? I know he was your mentor when you got there, but what was one of the biggest things he taught you your rookie year?
Well, Jonathan was in his 11th year, my rookie year, and was a free agent from Kansas City. And Jonathan was always a workman. He had a workman-like mentality, and he taught me how to be a true professional. And
right.
one of those things is you're going to show up early in the weight room every day, and you're going to come work out with me. And it wasn't optional. It wasn't like, hey, if you get a chance and you want to wake up, why don't you come in? It's like, no, Rook, we will see you tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. And so I knew that I had to be accountable to Jonathan, and I didn't want to be late. And Jonathan taught me what it takes to be a consistent pro, and that is to do your due diligence, do your work off the field, and then do your work on the field. And then that allows you, when you're done with your workday, to go home and be with your family. And that consistency that he instilled in me, and that workmanlike approach was something that I felt very fortunate because I think that helped me sustain my career. And you mentioned about the number of years that I played, 14 years. I think I truly believe that workmanlike mentality and being a true professional that he instilled in me was allowed me to play for so long.
Right. We played the same amount of years, but I think I got a few more games than you.
I think you did too. I think you did too. But and for a gentleman like yourself to be a left tackle and the battles that you went to every day, game in and game out, the number of players that you played against, and that attributes to your athleticism and your longevity is unique at that position. And congrats to you for that one, buddy. That's awesome to hear.
Right. But Bart, I guarantee you don't know what round I was drafted in. What round was I drafted in?
That's a good question, John. I'm gonna just guess because there was more than 7 rounds when you were drafted.
I put it like this. There were 12.
There were 12. I'm gonna say 10th round.
Yeah, it was a 10th round pick.
Oh, okay. So good. I got lucky.
You did get lucky.
Yeah.
You did get lucky.
Yeah.
You did get lucky. So you started your first 16 games in '97. What was that like? I mean, especially with those 2 years that you played a lot of special teams. You played, but now you become a starter in 1997. How was that?
It goes back to what's it like to be a pro, to be a true pro's pro, as we talked about what Jonathan instilled. And when I was playing with Jonathan, Jonathan was a starter and I was his backup. But I always had to prepare like I was going to be the starter because you and I both know that we're all one play away from never playing the game anymore, just with injuries, and it's the way it goes. But knowing that you're the starter going in, you have to prepare that much harder. You have to it's your job to take the reins, and your teammates are counting on you more than just a handful of plays in a game, maybe 20, 25 plays a game. You're in the trenches for 65, sometimes 70 plays, and you have to be consistent, and you can't just, win a few of those battles. You have to win every one of those battles. And that's the mindset that I had to take is, look, I'm going to figure out a way to win as many battles as I can and make sure that opponent who I played against, remember that he played 87 that day. And
right.
You're not a cheap, nobody's cheap. That's not a way to do it. But you're a hard football player was my mentality. And I always vied to play to the echo of the whistle and make sure that the Rod Burnett's, the Mike McCrary's, the Tony Brackens, the big dogs that I faced every at least twice a year, because those guys were in our division, knew that they knew they played me when that game was over. Yeah. And,
no, I mean, I think one of the biggest things being a Steeler is, it's ingrained in you that you're going to work hard. That's going to be the first thing that comes to your mind, and it's one of those things where you get that mentality, but once you see all those other guys, how hard they're working, you don't want to let them down. So you want to work twice. You want to work twice as hard so you can keep up with them. Because we had some competitive guys on those teams.
Oh my gosh, did we ever? But that's what made our team so good, John, as you know as well as I do. That when you're doing one-on-one pass rush with Greg or Kevin, they weren't trying to brother-in-law you or you brother-in-law them. They were trying to win, and they weren't trying to embarrass you. They were trying to help our team get better, meaning they were working on their skills and you were working on your skills. And I had the great fortune of, being a backup my early part of my career. I was on the scout team. So I was going against Greg and Kevin. And the number of times that Kevin would be like, hey, look, you're doing better with your hands. Why don't you try this? You did a good job cutting me off on this block. Try this release move because I know that's going to help you. That's just an example of players in that locker room were trying to figure out a way to get our team better. And they knew I was willing to work, and I wasn't shy of that. But that's just the camaraderie that we had and the work ethic that was instilled in that organization and in the team that I was a part of.
Right. So, Mark, we're going to do a segment called First Down. And first down is like your first. You remember your first touchdown?
Oh, yeah. It was down in Houston. Mike Tomczak threw it to me. And I was running a bootleg, and Mike had some pressure, so he had to reverse the field a little bit, and he threw it to me in the back of the end zone. And I still have this football today.
Really?
Up in my trophy case. And the cool thing about it is it has Mike Tomczak's name on it. And you talk about the teammates that are memorable to you when you played, and knowing that I got my first touchdown in Houston. It was the Oilers. Now they're the Tennessee Titans, but having that football and catching it down there was pretty special.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little on the humor side. So, what was the first funny thing you ever heard in a professional huddle? You remember that?
Oh, well, there's a couple
back
things.
To Mike Thomas.
Yeah, but there's
right?
Okay, there's a couple of things. And you were probably in the huddle too, John.
I was there. I was in the huddle.
So we were in a 4-minute offense, and for folks that understand or don't understand, a 4-minute offense is we had a lead and we were trying to run the football and run the clock
right.
down.
Trying to run the clock down. Yeah.
So we were taking our time, meaning we'd get back to the huddle, and we weren't in a hurry to call the play and get to the line of scrimmage. We wanted to make sure that we snapped the ball with like 5 seconds left in the play clock. So we're trying to, I don't remember the team, but we're trying to run the clock out. And Mike's looking around and he goes, "Does anybody know a joke?" And I'm like, "A joke? What are you talking about? We're in the middle of a football game." And he goes, "Well, I need like 15 seconds. He goes, "Come on, rookie, you got a joke or something for the huddle?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is an NFL huddle and our quarterback's asking if we have a joke to tell in the huddle." So that's one of the memorable things. Another memorable thing was we were backed up. This was at Three Rivers, and we might have been on the 2-yard line, and we went on 2 to try to draw the defense offside to get a free 5 yards. Well, my dumb butt jumps offsides, and I'm all mad. Coach Cowher's yelling from the sideline. Things were not good, and Troy Edwards was our wide receiver at the time. And he goes, "What are you worried about? It only cost us 1.5 yards. It didn't cost us the full 5 yards." So I said, "You know what? Look at the bright side. It didn't cost us a full 5 yards." So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but this is
no. Go ahead.
This is kind of funny because Justin Strelzik, obviously, God rest his soul, but was a great teammate of both of ours and biggest heart of anybody I've ever known. There was a game we were playing. It might have been the Redskins, and he was throwing up. And I don't know why, he was sick or whatever. And I go to the defensive end before we snap the ball. I said, "Watch out, this guy's throwing up. Stay away from him." And he's like, "Yeah, right, man. What are you talking about?" And so we go and do the play. And sure enough, Justin throws up, but he throws up on the guy in the middle of the play. Oh yeah. Really? Oh yeah. And we come back to the next play, and the guy said, "You weren't lying. The guy threw up on me." I said, "Man, I told you." So yeah, those are things that happen in real NFL games. I'm telling you.
No, I remember Justin. They told Justin don't leave the field because Justin would always, before this one period, he had to go pee.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Oh yeah.
They told him like, "Don't leave the field to pee." So Justin started. He just peed on himself.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You remember that?
100%.
Like,
yeah.
They're like, "Is he peeing up?" Like, yeah. They told him don't leave the field. So Justin's like, "Forget it." And Justin's like, so Justin's over to talking. He's just like, "I'm not washing these clothes, so I don't care."
Yeah.
Like,
well, and remember too, John, that was in pre-practice. We were in a walkthrough then. So he had to go through the entire practice with the stuff in his pants. And, oh, man, I remember Rogers, our equipment guy, was like picking up with rubber gloves, like just barely touching the edge of the fabric to make sure that he got it where it needed to be.
Well, I remember Tony coming out there with this long stick, and he's throwing the stuff in the little chute. He's like,
"Yep."
It's like, freaking Justin.
Justin. What's he doing?
Justin.
But you and I both know it didn't shock us that he did that. We were surprised, but it didn't shock us.
No, it was not a shock. Because were you there when Damani paid him $20 to eat a worm?
No.
It was in training camp?
No.
Yeah. So Damani, so Justin had this package that he had to mail off, and he didn't feel like walking back to the dorm and getting $20. So Damani goes, "Hey, if you eat that worm, I'll give you $20 when we get up to the locker room." And Justin just reached down, mud and all, and swallowed the thing whole.
Oh gosh.
And Damani gave him the $20. And so I was asking Damani when I had Damani on an interview, I said, "Damani, for $20, would you eat that worm?" He goes, "Yeah, for $20, I would eat that worm." I go, "You're crazy."
Not me. Not me, buddy.
Not me. No, I ain't going out like that.
No.
That's all right.
No. Hey, do you remember Dermani? It was our Green Bay game, December 24th in Green Bay, 1995. Do you remember what he was wearing underneath his pants? It was cold. It was cold. Like, remember how cold that game was?
Those stockings?
Yes, his wife's stockings. So the normal tights that you wear, are like runner's tights or whatever. I don't know what and
the thermal
exactly
tights.
Exactly. Right. Well, now the woman's pantyhose have the little cotton in the crotch area, and he's sitting in the locker room before the game, and we're all looking at him like, "What the heck are you wearing, man?" And he's like, "My wife gave these to me. What's the matter with you? They're going to keep me warm." And he's laughing and like didn't think anything was the matter with it. And I still remember that to this day. I'm like, well, I'm not going to say anything to him because he's going to beat my butt if I yell at him or make fun of him for wearing his wife's stockings.
No, there was always somebody doing something off the wall.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was just inevitable. It was inevitable.
Oh yeah.
So tell me, what was so you played in 5 playoff games, and I played with you. I guess I played with you in all 5 of those playoff games. No, how many playoff games did you play in Pittsburgh? I think 4, because you played 1 in Texas, right?
One with the Texans, yes.
Yeah. So you played 4 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
What was that like? Your first playoff game?
Oh my gosh. We had the greatest fan support of any NFL team, and I'm biased, but I'm also calling a spade a spade as far as
the place was rocking. The place was rocking, wasn't it?
And the stands were bouncing. It was absolutely nuts. And when we won the AFC Championship game, my first year there at home, that place was rocking. The number of terrible towels that were flying, you saw like a sea of yellow. You didn't see like a sporadic or little spaces here and there. You saw a sea of yellow, and the excitement of those fans and the passion of those fans, and those bleachers were bouncing. Those bleachers were bouncing. It was incredible, John. It really was. Really was.
So you came in the year we went to the Super Bowl.
Yes,
so did you think it was going to be like that all the time?
Well, do you remember our punter at the time? His name was Ron Stark.
Yeah.
And Ron from the old Baltimore Colts. That's where he started. And he might have been in his like 14th or 15th year at the time. And I'm in my rookie year. And I remember after we won, we were in the meeting on Monday with Coach Cowell. We were kind of discussing, the schedule and all that other stuff that goes along with going and playing in that game. And I get up and I was like, this is going to be the greatest ever. I'm so excited about this. And he goes, you need to understand you're very lucky to be going through this. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And he goes, no, you don't understand. This is my 14th year and this is my first Super Bowl. And this is your first year and you're going to your first Super Bowl. He said,
right.
Remember and be appreciative of this opportunity, Mark, because you might not get it again. And I never went back.
Yeah. Because that was, me and Damani, we came in together. That was our 8th year.
Yeah.
And we had gotten close. We won a couple of playoff games because I think with Chuck, we went to 2 playoff games. We did 2 playoff games. I mean, I played 11 playoff games.
Wow.
I think 11. Yeah. Might have been, 11. Yeah, 11, 13. Ended up with 13 playoff games.
That's impressive, John. Yeah.
And I played in 3 AFC Championship games. My last game with the Steelers was the AFC Championship game.
Was that against the Patriots?
That was against that was against Denver.
When they won at our place. Remember they won at our place. Oh man.
Yeah, that was my last game there. That was my last game there in 90. That was
4? No, 7.
No, that was 97.
Yeah.
No, 98.
98. Okay.
Because we played New England. I think we played New England 97 and 98. I can't remember. I mean, I remember, but we played. I know we played a lot of playoff games. I mean, 13 playoff games. It's a long time.
Well, and I remember going to the hotel that Saturday night before the game, the championship
And
games.
how crazy was that hotel? How crazy was that hotel?
Well, first of all, when you were driving to get to the hotel, you would see the lines of cars to get into the parking lot, even though the parking lots didn't open until the next morning at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. whatever. People were in line the night before to get in. And then you go to the hotel, and like, even when we went in the side entrance, the entire lobby was jammed with Steeler fans. And, it goes back to the support and the following that we have there. And incredible the number of people that would just line the hotel lobby and try to get a glimpse of some of the players and to be there to cheer and scream and yell. I mean, it was impressive, John, really impressive.
Now, so you stay in Pittsburgh for 9 years. So how was it going to Tennessee? I know it had to be different because you grew up with one mentality, and now you go to a new team. So what was that like?
Well, you go from an established franchise in Pittsburgh, founded in 1933, one owner, the Rooney family, started with the chief and then to Dan and then now to Art. And you go to a new franchise, the Houston Texans. And I was there the second year. They were 3 years in, and it was their second season. And you want to talk about like spring chicken. Like, I'm looking around going, wow, they got some young players here. But it as we talked about the veteran locker room that we had, they had just a sprinkle of veteran players, but the majority, the bulk of that team was young. And, Coach Dom Capers, and Dom was the defensive coordinator in Pittsburgh when you were there early in your career.
Right. Yeah.
And then Dom was the first head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So he was familiar with a new franchise and how to kind of bring a new franchise along. And maybe that was one of the reasons why they hired him. But it was interesting. Things were just so different, and not in a bad way, but they were just so different. Like Mr. McNair was he made his money with energy, and he didn't run it. No, he didn't run it wrong, but he ran it his way like a business, whereas the Pittsburgh Steelers were run like a family organization.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't as personable. We weren't really as close to the folks up in the front office, or you would walk upstairs and Mr. Rooney's office was open, and you could walk in and say hi to him. I mean, obviously respectful.
And that's and that's something people I tell people that, and they were like, "There's no way you could just walk up to Mr. Rooney if his door's open. You could walk in and say, hello, Mr. Rooney, how you doing? Just want to say hello." And you go, "Hey, come on in." Like, they did have a little conversation with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people that, and they go, "What?" Yeah. You can actually go up to him. It's like his door was always open. And I'm pretty sure Art's like that too, because Art took after his dad. I mean, that's the way they are.
Yeah.
And I went to San Diego, was not like that. You couldn't go just talk to the owner. You had to go, and talk to the secretary first. And it's like, well, I'll get you an appointment. Like, no, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
Or even the Bengals. You just couldn't walk up to the front office and say hello to everybody.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you're a player, you stay in the player's spot. Yes. You don't walk up here.
Yes.
We don't want you up here. We don't want you up here. But you knew everybody though.
Yeah.
Up in the front office, you knew everybody.
Exactly.
And they knew you. And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah. Remember Mr. Rooney? Remember, Mr. Rooney would come in the locker room after every game and congratulate you on a win.
Right, shake your hand.
Individually. It wasn't like, kind of a general type thing. It was, John, hey, great job today. You did a good job for us. Thank you so much. Great win. Let's get another one next week. Like, it was very personable. It wasn't just a glad hand, like, good job, man. And, let's keep it going. Like, nothing like that. That's how he was, though. That's how Mr. Rooney was. And, the Christmas party, we had a Christmas party every year.
I mean, you know what? I miss those Christmas parties. I go to San Diego and comes and say, nothing. And I'm like, you guys having a Christmas party? Like, what? He goes, John, we don't do that here. I'm like, you really don't do that here? I'm like, oh, God. I mean, all the gifts they gave us, and especially for the kids.
Yep.
And they bring Santa. They bring Santa in. And it was a family. It was like, you know what? We appreciate you. Here's a gift for your wife. Here's a gift for your kids. And here's a gift for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think I still have some of that Steeler luggage.
I do too. It's funny you say that. I do too. Yeah. But and now that I work in the front office, he still carries that along, and he gives the
Hmm.
same gifts to the folks that worked in regular employees too. I mean,
Hmm.
things have consistently stayed that way. Nothing's changed in that regard.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I've got a Steeler watch that I've never worn, but the Marines gave it to me, and I've got it upstairs, and I think I might bust that out one day because I've never
yeah,
wear it. But it's just one of those things that the Roonies gave it to me, and it's one of those keepsakes for myself. So
exactly. And there's a lot of
yeah.
thought. They put a lot of thought in each of those presents too. It wasn't just
Hmm.
a corporate gift. It was really thoughtful. And you talk about the presents for the kids. As our kids got older, like they had age appropriate presents. It wasn't just a
Exactly.
general bin of presents. They just said, "Here, take this." It was age appropriate presents for the teenagers, and then when my girls got a little bit older, it was more appropriate for them. If you know what I'm saying.
Right, and they had them wrapped up with their names on them. And
Yes,
I tell people that, and they go, "They had them wrapped up with your kids' names up?" Like, yeah, it was just for them. And I'm like, okay, like that's just how they roll.
I know. Yeah,
It doesn't get any
but
better than that.
we
But
didn't
that's
know
the
any
things.
different. We didn't know any
But you know
different.
what? I didn't appreciate it then, but I appreciate it so much when I left, and I was like, these guys are unbelievable. And
Yeah,
it was just a little thing.
I know.
It's nothing major, but it's like, you know what? We care about you. It's Christmas. Have a good time.
Yeah,
Just those little things, and I think that's what sets the Steelers apart. It's just those little things that says, you're important to us.
yes,
You were that much important to us. I mean, just like when you had your baby, I'm pretty sure you got a gift. Everybody got a fruit basket
yep,
and a little token of, a little letter saying, welcome to the new Steeler, to the family.
yep.
I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't write this stuff up. I mean,
No,
that's just the way they are, and was just so appreciative of the things that they do. I mean, well, like I said, I didn't really appreciate it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate it, but I appreciate it more when I left.
well, you
And
you don't realize how unique that is until you leave.
hmm
Meaning, you went to the Chargers, and not that they run their organization bad. It's just how they ran it. And I go to the Texans, and we did have a Christmas party, and so that was a nice thing that they did provide for us. But just a personal one-on-one family type environment the culture that is there in that organization with the Steelers is
well, you remember
unique.
they used to give us, yeah, remember they used to give us Christmas cards so we could send out to people.
Yes. Oh yes.
And I tell people, they're like, let me get this straight. They gave you, like, yeah, they gave us Christmas cards, and we would send them out, and people would thought they were like on top of the moon. Get a Christmas card from a player, and with the whole team was a team picture, and
Yep.
it said, "Happy Holidays from the Steeler family,"
Yep.
and then you sign your name on there. And
Yep.
I used to love sending those out,
Yeah.
but those are one things I appreciate too. But there was a
Yeah.
lot of things I appreciated about the
Yeah.
Rooney family. Just overall, the respect that they gave me and the respect they gave other people.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like you said, it's different when you leave to go somewhere else.
and the thing that I've always appreciated about the Rooney family is they walk the walk, and they talk the talk, meaning they back up their actions. And they'll say something, and a lot of people will, hey, we're gonna be genuinely involved in this cause. Well, they are saying that, but then they actually back it up with their actions. and
Hmm.
and to me, that's special. That really is. And
Right.
we're lucky, buddy. We were very
Yeah.
lucky.
And you told me a great story about when you guys were scouting due to COVID in the draft. What did they do for you guys for the
Oh,
draft?
you'll like this one. So
Hmm.
because of COVID, all of our travel was basically nothing. It still is really nothing right now.
Hmm.
And normally, the month of March, about the 5 weeks leading up to the draft, we're in Pittsburgh for our draft meetings, and we're all in the draft room, day in and day out. And these are long days. And
Hmm.
this spring we didn't. We couldn't do it. So we're in our first week of draft meetings, and everything was done via conference call with our group. And Kevin Colbert did an outstanding job of organizing it and making everything run extremely smooth. Well, Friday of our first week, there's a delivery, and I'm in the meetings, and I get a break, a lunch break, whatever it might be, and my wife's like, "We got this package from the Steelers," and I said, "Package from the Steelers? What are you talking about?" Well, it was an entire meal. It was a honey baked ham meal. It was a spiral ham with 3 different courses. A salad, vegetable, the main course, and then a dessert. And it was from Art.
Right.
Thank you for all your hard work. We're sorry that you can't be here in Pittsburgh. Enjoy a nice meal with your family. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, man, oh man. So I was quick to send him a note off real quick to say thanks for it. And he said, it's the least we could do for all the hard work you're doing for us. And that's just another example. And another meal came the following week. It was a different meal. It was a barbecue meal, but that just shows you how he's thinking of us and how he cares about every one of his employees. It's really pretty special, John. It really is.
Oh, that is. So what made you get into, like, when your career was done, what work did you do for the NFL Players Association? You were an executive?
So while I was playing, I was a union representative, and then I was lucky enough to be elected to the executive committee. So every team has 2 representatives, and then from that body of the 2 representatives, they elect 10 executive committee members, and we just help as another layer of our union. And when I retired, I still had another year on my term of a 2-year term with the executive committee. And it was really helpful and really insightful. And I was really fortunate to be involved, because that's shortly after I retired is when we were starting to do the labor negotiations with the union and the union and the owners. So we're in some high level meetings with these owners, Mr. Mayor from the Giants and a number of different folks that really are the decision makers of the NFL. And the great thing about it is these are all great businessmen. I want to be really clear, but they're all great human beings too. And both sides were trying to get their work done. But the meetings that we had with these gentlemen, they were very sincere people, and they really cared about the game. And obviously they're trying to do what they can for their side, but they were really trying to be as good of negotiators and forthcoming negotiators as they could when we were going through that process. And that was exciting to be a part of. It really was.
Oh, that sounds like a hell of an experience.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, hold on one second here. Hey, I got a great place for you to get a cigar, and it's called Bell's House of Tobacco. Right now, he's got a limited edition of his jazz collection. And this is a ragtime. This is a great cigar, and this is a cigar I'm smoking after this podcast. Go to Bell's, and you will definitely get a great cigar. But check out his jazz collection. Like I said, it's a limited time only, but check him out, and believe me. And make sure you tell him that you saw this on his podcast, because I want to make sure that he knows that I'm doing these shout outs for him, because that's a great place to go. I mean, I love going to Bell's. Always get a great cigar. So I spent a lot of time there with Jonathan pre-COVID, but now we can't smoke here anymore.
Jeez.
It's
tough.
It's tough. And especially when it's getting cold, it's another story.
Yeah.
So tell me, what made you get in? What made you get into scouting?
I always wondered, and I was, as you talked about the upstairs environment, they were always welcoming, endearing, and open door policy. I was always wondering, like, how do we get these new guys that come in? How do they find that new defensive back, or how do they find that new offensive tackle? And I would go upstairs and talk to the Phil Cradlers, the Bill Nunns, the Doug Whaleys, and like, how'd you get this guy? Where'd he come from? And so they began to explain the process to me, and it was fascinating. I was fascinated by what that process is and what they do. And I remember Mr. Nunn saying, "You don't want to get into this stuff, Mark. It's you're a football player. Be a football player, and you don't want too much travel. It's not something that you want to do." And I said, "Well, Mr. Nunn," I said, "Well, I'm going to play as long as I can, but we'll see about this, when I'm retired." And it was always a passion of mine. And it was when I was at the combine with the union, when I was serving on the executive committee, I saw Kevin Colbert, our general manager. And
Mm-hmm.
and he said, Mark, we have an internship program in training camp that I'd like you to be a part of if this is something that you want to do. And I said, Kevin, I would really like to be a part of it. And he said, then let's do it. Let's make it happen. And luckily for me, they allowed me to do that 10-day internship in training camp, and I did it. And it was a very much of a great learning process because I'm a part of every meeting that the scouting department has, and they taught us how they go about scouting their players, how the scouts go out and scout, what they look for, and it was very intricate. And Robert Porcher was another one of the interns that year when I was there, and they gave us a handful of players to evaluate on film and then write up a report on them. And then we would read our reports to the group, and then they would give us constructive criticism, like, "Hey, I thought you did good describing this. Maybe you could work on this and work a little bit on this area over here." And I shortly after that, I get a phone call from Kevin, and he said, "Do you really want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, we'll give it a try. This first year will be we'll see if it's a fit for you and your family and a fit for us, and then we'll send you out there." And so I was fortunate enough to have that kind of a long-term internship opportunity. And luckily for me, they hired me full time after that. And I've been fortunate to be a part of it every year since.
Right. So where did you start at first? Where did you go first? You remember that?
Well, I was living I was living where I live now, and that's in Seattle. And they
Mm-hmm.
had me visit some West Coast schools, some of the Pac-12 schools, the USC's, the UCLA's, the Washingtons,
Mm-hmm.
some of the Mountain West schools like Nevada. Um, and I did a handful of school visits that fall, and then wrote my reports, and then went through the full process of the scouting year, because they have the college season, and they have the All-Star games, and then the combine, and then the pro days, and then the draft meetings, and then the full draft. So I was really lucky that they were allowing me to be a part of that, and for them to bring me on full time.
Right. So you've been there over 10 years now. So is there one guy that got away that you thought, you know what, we should have really took a really good look at this guy, and all of a sudden nobody took a look at him, but one team took a chance on him and he's in the league now?
Well, scouting is very subjective, meaning
Mm-hmm.
you and I could both look at the same player, and we could have 5 things that are similar as far as his
Mm-hmm.
attributes, and you can have 3 different things that I have as far as how he plays or what level of player this guy could be. And
Right.
what we do is we all individually put our grades on a player, and then we collaboratively put a Steeler grade on a player. So you and I look at an offensive tackle, and you give him a 3rd round grade, and I give him a 5th round grade,
Okay.
and then somebody else gives him a 3rd round grade. So then we go through our meetings, and the head coach and Coach Tomlin, and then the offensive line coach gives his opinion, and then Kevin will give his final opinion, and then we come up with a Steeler grade, and that final Steeler grade might be a 3rd round pick. And because you gave him a 3rd round pick, that allowed him to be looked at by multiple people, and that so happened to coincide with our final grade that we gave the guy. And
Mm-hmm.
they're players that we will put in our 3rd round, but maybe somebody else thinks he's a 2nd round guy, and they grab him before we get him. And so we still liked him, but somebody else grabbed him before we got him. And so then we just got to go to the next guy, because you can't put all your eggs in that one basket, because you and I both know that the draft's pretty unpredictable. And
Right.
if you sit there and say, "Hey, I'm going to get player A," and then someone trades up to a spot
Mm-hmm.
before you and takes player
And
A,
takes him. Yeah.
then you're like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck's going on here?"
Like, what do I do now? What do I do
Yeah,
now? Yeah.
yeah,
Who's my B player?
yeah. But we go through the thorough evaluation of all the players, and we put them, up on our board, how we feel they're ranked as far as athletically, and how they're going to be Steeler players. And we, as you talked about, our culture that we have there, and the culture that Mike Tomlin has instilled in that program. They're players that are very talented, and they're
Mm-hmm.
really good college football players, but maybe they're not a great Steeler. And maybe there's not we just don't feel that they're going to be a good fit for us. Maybe it's a defensive end, and we play a 3-4 defense. Well, we like our defensive ends like Cam Hayward at 6'4", 315 pounds, and
Right.
some of those 4-3 defensive ends are 6'4", 240 pounds, 250 pounds, and that might not fit our defensive style.
Mm-hmm.
So, although they're a really good player, but they're just not a great fit for us. But then he could excel in a 4-3 team, maybe the
Right.
49ers or the Chargers, whatever defense they're playing. That's an example of a guy that just is a very talented player, but just not a great fit for the Steelers.
So your responsibility is on the West Coast. Are you just doing certain conferences? Are you doing any small conferences?
So I do the Mountain West Conference. I do the Pac-12. I do, I go by states. So,
Okay.
Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Texas. And
So do
Oklahoma.
you go any D2 schools or D3 schools?
If there's a prospect there that is worthy of, hey, look, you should probably take a look at this guy. But what you don't want to do is ever pass a school without at least inquiring. Hey, look, you know what? There might be somebody here to take a look at. Let me just pop in or call the coach and say, hey, coach, you have anybody that I should take a look at? And sometimes there is, and sometimes there's not. Like the drive between Seattle and Pullman, Washington, University of Washington, Seattle, Washington State's in Pullman. Well, there's a small school called Central Washington University. They have a football program.
Mm-hmm.
And so why drive by that school without at least contacting the coach and say, hey, is there anybody I should take a look at? Because
so are there any schools that are surprised that you stopped by?
Well, there was,
you get wow, the Steelers are stopped by to look at our guy.
Well, yeah,
look at next one of our guys. Yeah,
but the folks are pretty excited that a Steelers scout or any scout is in their building. And then you get a lot from these older coaches. Hey, I remember your team in the 70s. That's when I became a Steeler fan because you guys won those 4 championships. And it's just
you go, I'm not that old.
Well, I say, yeah. Let's remember, I wasn't there then. But if you can, it's pretty amazing if you show that you're with the Steel organization. They seem to smile and open their arms up a little wider when you come in the door. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I remember I was on I had a connecting flight in Los Angeles, and I had it like Los Angeles airport's really, really big, and it was one of those deals where I had to go out through security and then go out on the curb. It's supposed to get a shuttle bus from gate 1 to gate 17 or something. Like it was far away.
Yeah,
so
you had another
terminal. I had to go to a different terminal.
Go to.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm real tight on the time, real tight, because my flight was delayed getting in. And I go to this police officer and I said, sir, and I'm like running, like I got a little sweat going on my brow. And I said, hey, I need to get to the American Airlines terminal. I said, can you just direct me to where it is? And he said, are you a Steeler fan? And I said, yes, sir, I am. And he goes, you work for him? And I said, yeah, actually, I'm a scout for him. I'm trying to get a flight. And he goes, so where are you going? And I said, I got to go to Terminal C, gate 17. And he goes, that's pretty far away. He said, you can wait over here for the shuttle bus. He said, forget it. Let me take you. So he drove me in this van. Yes. So he drove me in the police van from this, Terminal A to Terminal C. And I made my flight. And I said, sir, I would really appreciate if I could just send you something as appreciation. And he gave me his business card. And so I get home from that trip and I email him and I, express my gratitude for getting me on the flight. And I made it. And he goes, I'm the biggest Steeler fan. And I just was honored that I could help you out. And so I sent him some Steeler gear and we still will have email exchanges back and forth. He'll talk about the game and like this season because the team's been doing so well. he'd be like, hey, let's make sure we keep it going. And so we still have an interaction via, email. And it all started with me asking him how to get to Terminal D from the LAX airport. It was insane.
That's a great story, Mark. It's a
Yeah,
great story. Do you have fans come up to you and go, "Hey, I remember you when you were playing"?
I do. When I'm back in Pittsburgh, we'll be out to dinner, when we're back there for meetings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And folks will say, yeah, I remember when you played here. That was great. And, when I've gone to some games, I've taken my family to some games, and I'm walking, in the seats where all the fans are. And the number of times I've been, a guy will turn around and say, hey, aren't you Mark Bruner? I said, yes, sir, I am. And he goes, oh, you were a great tight end here. I really enjoyed watching you play. And, oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And my kids would be like, Dad, they remember you. That was kind of cool. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty special, but it shows, just the culture that's there in Pittsburgh and how they really support their team there. It really does.
So Mark, what do your kids think? I mean, you've got your oldest is what, 23, you said?
Yes.
So what about the kids who didn't watch you play? Do they get still excited that people know my dad as a Steeler?
They do. But the cool thing is like your family as well, like your sons, is they were raised, they grew up in the game, and it wasn't a novelty for them.
Mm-hmm.
And like when we first moved here after I retired to the Seattle area, I remember going into the grade schools and trying to meet the teachers and everything, and the kids would be like, "Oh yeah, that's so and so. He used to be an NFL player," and my kids are like, "Well, that's just my dad. Like, it's
Right.
not a big deal, It's just kind of how it is." Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's great because they're not like overly excited or like jaded just because of what I did. And I always said football is what I did for a living. It didn't define me as a person. And
Right.
I was able to provide some really cool and unique opportunities and experiences for our family, and I'm still able to do that because of this great game. But it's pretty special that they kind of keep things in perspective of what I did and what I'm currently able to do right now, and keep they're pretty grounded, which I'm fortunate, John. I really am.
No, I think you're grounded, Mark, and I think that's a reflection on you and your wife. I'm pretty sure you guys have done a great job with your kids. So it's one of those hats off to you.
Well, thank you.
But five, I mean, I was stuck at two. I was stuck at two, and I was like, okay, two. I was like, okay, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you're
two
man to
and
man.
five.
You're man to man at two. You go from 2 to 3, you're in zone, and when you go from 3 to 5, that means you're insane, like me.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hey, Mark. So, with COVID, and you can talk more about this because I mean, you're in the inside as far as the scouting department. I mean, it's got to be really.
And which is you really got to try to make the most of your exposure to them, but you're far away. It's tough to I like to go to a practice and see a kid, see one of the first ones out to practice, or see one of the last ones that kind of lollygags out there.
Mm-hmm.
How does he interact with his teammates? Like a quarterback, like is he kind of joking and like you could tell if he's in a good rapport with his offensive line, or if
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of one of those standoffish guys. You can get all that at practice. Sometimes with the defensive back, you can see him catch. Whereas if you go to a game, you can't see their hands because maybe the guy doesn't get an opportunity in the game,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. So it's really tough. And the number of when we go to the schools, you meet with coaches while you get a chance to walk into a coach's office, close the door, ask them about the character of the player and how we're on Zoom calls now. And you have the coach, and then you have 30 scouts on a call. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the coach is going to tell you information, but he's not going to like be candid with you. But in
Right.
all fairness to him, he doesn't know everybody on the call.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to rely upon your gut feeling when you're looking at a guy and make the most of every opportunity that you have. And so this has been a tough fall. It really has been, but it is what it is. There's nothing we can do to change it. So we're all in the same boat, and you're going to see the true scouts come out in this environment as far as, is this guy a true evaluator, or is he one of those guys that likes to read the newspaper clippings and just look at the top 10 that some reporter wrote as the top 10 prospects in this position, and then that's who he's going to choose. So
yeah, Mark, but just don't go on Mel Kiper's list. Don't go on Mel Kiper's list. Mel Kiper is evaluation of talent.
Yeah,
might be a little suspect.
Well,
so Mark, who's the let's say who's the guy you've scouted that's made the team and that's really done a great job, more past your expectations that you've scouted?
Well, now I want to be clear though, like we talk about a Steeler grade and the collaboration. So there isn't one player that's playing for the Steelers that like I was the guy that rose my hand and said, "Look, this is my sleeper, Kevin. You need." Or you
were the guy who found this guy?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So if we identify a guy as a legitimate guy, then we have multiple looks at him. So myself and Kelvin Fisher and Chidi Iwoma, and then Kevin or Coach Tallman. We have a lot of folks a lot of eyes on him. But players that were in my area that I scouted, that myself amongst other members of our organization scouted, that have done really well for us. David Castro, our offensive guard. He's been a All-Pro for a number of years. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been just an amazing player for us. And those are two guys that I can just think of off the top of my head that are from the West Coast that have become into Steeler Nation and have really represented well and bought into the way we do things and have done a great job for us in that regard. So, I've looked at a lot of players that our room has liked, but then they get chosen by somebody else.
Right.
Just because maybe where we picked or someone traded up and took them. And that's just the way it goes. You got to work with what you got. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Mark, you know what? I do appreciate you for doing this podcast for me, brother. I appreciate it. But I appreciate you more because you're picking the right people, or should I say, collectively, you guys are picking the right people. And to me, you've always been a team player. And when you started in Pittsburgh, you were a team player, and you're still a team player. And that's what I appreciate about you.
Wow.
It has not changed. You're a team player, brother. You're a team player.
I appreciate that, John. And, as a scout, when I'm looking at a player and I'm trying to ask the question, will this guy be a good Steeler? I have yourself and the other players that I started with my rookie year, as we talked about where the bar was. And I want to be clear is you guys brought me in and the bar was up here. So now we're continually trying to meet that bar. And all the players that I look at are like, will this guy be a good teammate in our locker room? And will he be a good Steeler where the bar was set, where the bar is set? And that's attributed to you and the gentleman that were on the team at the time when a young guy like me from University of Washington came in and said, "This is how we do things here, and let's make sure we do it right."
And Mark, you did a great job. You had a great career, and you know what? Continued success in your scouting career. I know you'll do a great job because you're a team player.
John,
we want to thank Mark Bruner for being our guest. Hey, don't forget, this is the Offline podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe and hit that like button. And please send the comments and questions to offlinepodcast.com. Hey, another great insight as far as what a player, now a scout, goes through. And it's all about teamwork. And that's what Mark's about. And that's what the Steeler organization is about. It's all about being a part of that team, but it's also about being part of family. And again, I want to thank Mark for doing this podcast with me. A lot of people don't know we had a glitch earlier, so we had to redo it. And Mark, like a team player, came back, and I appreciate that. But thank you so much for watching podcast 17. And you guys, hey, be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.